SATB2GeneFoundation.com.
Hello and welcome to this webinar on the topic of alternative and augmentative communication, a primer. I'm Casey Edwards and I'm here representing the SATB2 Gene Foundation and SATB2 families. I am joined today by Mr. John Halloran. He is a speech and language pathologist and the senior clinical associate for the Center for AAC and Autism. He has been in the field of AAC since 1994, so it's hard to find a bigger expert on the topic. He's also the co-author of the Language Acquisition Through Motor Planning Approach. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to John to kind of give us some information on the topic of AAC.
Right. Well, thank you for having me. And I really enjoyed getting to meet some of your families and work with some of the families. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity to learn and share with you guys. So I'm going to try to make this a generic AAC workshop, but at the same time, LAMP is something we developed. And in some ways you can't, you try to be open and to other things, but when we talk about learning a communication device or learning anything, we all learn through our sensory systems. So we all learn one way, no matter what our disability is. We learn from what we smell, hear, taste, feel, and touch. So, and the better we integrate those sensory systems, the better we learn. So LAMP is all about using your sensory systems to learn. And if for some reason your mouth isn't neurologically wired where you feel your lips, hear the sound, and see something happen and make those connections between those sensory systems, or you can't do it because you physically can't get your muscles to do it, for whatever reason, we still learn through our sensory systems, and the better we integrate those sensory systems, the better we learn. So then what we're going to try to do is use your hand as a backdoor method for getting that to happen. But anyway, I've been really happy to work with some of your families in the past, and they've been helping us learn. So hopefully my PowerPoint's ready to work. So it's confusing, but LAMP is a method, and then LAMP is also a vocabulary. LAMP, words for life, is a vocabulary. So many times people say, I use LAMP. What they're really saying is they use the vocabulary. They probably got onto iTunes and they downloaded the app. They went to a training, but it's also just so you try to keep the two straight. People that have been to training or understand the difference, they would say, I use the LAMP method with X product. So LAMP, words for life, is a vocabulary we adapted of a version of a communication system called Unity, or a vocabulary called Unity, for the Prank-Your-Own company to follow the LAMP methodology. Now, it gets confusing, and I've had some allergies, so I have nose problems, so I apologize, but I'm really distant with this COVID going on. So anyway, it's kind of confusing because you can have LAMP on an iPad that you just downloaded off the internet. You could have LAMP, words for life vocabulary, on a dedicated iPad device, which really just means that it was bundled with speakers and it was bundled with a key guard and a strap and maybe given a real durable case. And some of those are funded by Medicaid and insurance companies. And then there's the PRC or Liberator dedicated devices. Those are called an accent. Well, anyway, long story short, you can see how confusing all this is because you have all these different things going on. And all I'm going to tell you up front is that you should always try things before you buy things. You don't even want to really spend a lot of money and time on iPad apps that you don't research well and don't have maybe some help picking for your child, because those critical learning years are lost sometimes on a system that wasn't as well fit for your child as another one. So what I did here is I gave you your first link, because I'm going to share this with Casey. This first link just takes you to a website which will let you put in your zip code and let you find out who your local PRC consultant is. And if you're wanting to look at another companies, you'd want to look up their consultants. And then you want to get them out to work with your team, and then you want to try things before you purchase anything. Don't give any money until you know it's hopefully the right fit for your kid. So this isn't a soft science here that I went to this video, but the biggest predictor of whether your kids are going to do well is how excited the team is about your child communicating. And I know this sounds crazy, but when you pick your teachers and your therapists, just watch their reaction to when your kid does something very small. And if they make just a little attempt to say something on their device, like they say eat or they say go, and the teacher looks so excited, then you surround your kids with people who look like that. I want to give you some research behind why that's important, that you choose people who get excited when your kids make small gains. Ends up being, this was done with individuals with autism and those without autism. And this study is done by Overman Richard, I can't say the second name, it's a hard one in Panetta. But anyway, they took a hand, it's really a simple thing, they took a hand like this and put it in front of people's faces. And then they measure using fMRIs and type equipment to see what's happening in your brain. And sure enough, when it's called a mirror neuron, so it's it's two words, mirror neuron, and they're fun to read about. It's not debatable whether they exist. It's debatable sometimes on their importance, but they're really important because when you see my mouth saying mom, your mouth is saying mom with me. When you see my hand doing this, your hand, even though you don't feel it happening, your hand is doing this with me. Well, individuals with autism are less likely to have that mirror neuron show up, and the more severe their autism, the less likely they are to show up. But then they repeated the study, and they did it with individuals like their parents or brother or sister, and sure enough, statistically more likely to show up when you have a relationship with that person. That's also true for typical developing people. So it ends up being that if we have a social connection, if we like the person we're with, then we can learn from them. And if we don't like them, we turn them off. So we all need to surround ourselves with people we admire and we like, and we know they respect us when they get excited when we do small steps. I just thought it was important. I know that speech is a real problem for many of your children you work with and your children, but I don't think we should ever say, I know that there's some that have some words and some vocalizations, and we never want to say never to anything, but I just want you to know that all the research shows that kids that using all disabilities, using communication devices become more verbal, not less. So although it's not something you choose to use, just know that when speech therapists and people are using a communication device or any other form of communication, maybe it's sign language, or maybe it's a picture exchange, all those things lead to more speech and more communication, and so you want to encourage use of other forms of communication. The hardest place in the world to make a communication device to work is in your homes. And the reason is because you moms and dads have a love language that is so effective. Your children can barely wrinkle their nose, and then you say, no, we're not going outside. They can say da da da, and you say, we're not going to get that cookie, so no more. Or they say bye bye bye, you say, yes, grandma's coming. And so that love language makes using an alternative form less effective. But when they use those love languages, I want you to accept it as a communication act in its whole. Don't ask them to say it again. Just cast back or expand what they said. So sometimes they're going to use body language, and you know that you can read them well because of that love language. Sometimes they're going to use signs and gestures, and you want to embrace that. Sometimes they're going to bring you an object or hold out something or point to something. You want to accept all those. And sometimes they'll need to use a communication device like an iPad with an app on it or a dedicated device with a vocabulary system on it. Just remember again that you don't care which one they use, they're all equally beautiful. And remember again, all these different methods improve verbal speech production. And when they do use one of the forms, so if they sign to you, then all you have to do is cast back. You say verbally, oh, you said more. Or if they said ma with their mouth, you could say, oh, you said more. Or if they said more with their hand, you could say it with their device. You could say, oh, I heard you say more. So you're casting back and you're expanding what they said, but you're not requiring that they say it another way. There's one thing all people have in common. We hate being told to say it again. So once we've said something, once I tell you drink, the last thing on earth I want you to tell me is say it again correct. Now I get mad because nobody likes that happening to them. So use any form of communication that they choose to use, cast back and expand with the other forms. And you don't want, sounds crazy, but you want your reinforcers to be intermittent. You want them to sometimes you cast back, sometimes you don't, sometimes you sign back, sometimes you model it on the device, but you don't have to do it all the time. And you need to live a very AAC guilt-free life. As a parent, you've got a lot of things going on, so you don't have to feel stressed about, did I do this right every time? There's no way to do it wrong. If they're having fun and they're using the forms of communication, that's great. This one's an important one for me, but remember, it's not what you say, it's not how you say it, it's what you say. I hope I'm getting that right. It's what you say, not how you say it. I got it wrong twice, but there, you can forgive me for that because it's what I'm trying to say, not what I said. But the trick to communication, the trick to improving someone's verbal speech or improving their length of utterance is the quality of exchange and not the form they use. And so just stay relaxed and have fun, and know if they're engaged and they're fun and they're playing and they're using other forms of communication, you're doing your job. So keep it fun, and also the communication devices need to be very open-ended. A lot of people, for some reason, when we get one of these devices, we become very rigid. We become sort of focused on trying to teach the device. And I want you to remember that they learn a lot of language from saying something and then seeing something happen. I remember one time a little boy said that I was walking through my wife's clinic, and a little boy, I know he didn't mean to hit it, but he just said the word eat when I was walking through there. And when he did, I hit my stomach, and I just patted my stomach. You can't see it on this camera, thank goodness, but I got kind of a pooch. So I started hitting my stomach, and this little boy went crazy, just loving that he made me hit my stomach. And for the next few years, every time I'd see him, he would say, eat, and then I would hit my stomach, and he would laugh. And he's an adult now in Little Rock, and his mother sees me sometimes at the store, and she says, we'll never forgive you for what you did. Well, what he does is he sees anybody overweight, he starts saying, eat, 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 clapping and pointing at him and going crazy, having fun. Well, anyway, just so you know, a lot of language is learned from the expressive mode first. You say something, you attach meaning to it, sometimes you get it wrong. So the first time when I was laying in my crib, or when your baby was laying in their crib, if they had normal sensory integration, they were just feeling their lips. So they were just feeling their lips saying, ma, ma, ma. So they were getting motor, ma, ma. They were feeling their lips. They were hearing something happen. So you had motor and you had auditory. And it's called multisensory convergence. So they felt their lips, mama, they heard that sound, and then they saw you clap. And they thought it was fun, so they got joy out of seeing you clap. So they learned their first word, make that fool clap. So it was motor, it was auditory, and it was visual. And when you clapped, they got joy in it, which releases the neurotransmitter that said those cells that just fired need to wire together. So motor, auditory, visual, that's called multisensory convergence. And when those neurons fire, they need the moment of joy to be wired together. So one more time, they felt their lips, they heard the sound, they saw you clap, that had a multisensory convergent neurons fired, and then they got joy out of that, which released the neurotransmitter that said those neurons that just fired need to wire together. That exact thing is what we're going to do on the device. They're going to touch something, motor neurons are going to go up their arm, they're going to hear the sound from the device, and then they're going to see something happen, and they're going to attach their own intrinsic value in what they thought it meant. So when they touch the word go, they feel it, they hear it, they see you go away, they think that's funny, they get joy out of making you go away, so now they've learned a word on their device. But it's not that they hadn't understand the symbol of why that symbol meant that. It was more of a motor movement, a motor with auditory visual, and then they saw something happen and got joy from it. So you want your activities to be fun and open-ended. So I'm giving you some examples, but one of my favorite is to have the children set it up where the device says a word like bed. It has the rooms of your house in it. So they say bedroom and everybody runs to the bedroom. Then they say kitchen and everybody runs to the kitchen. But there's no right or wrong answer. You're just running from room to room. This is one of my favorite, where they can say anything and you try to find it. So if they say blue, accidentally you run around and find something blue. If they say eat, you run around and find something you can eat. So they just find things, find items. Acting out words is fun too. So they're just basically playing. They say a word and you act it out. They say a word and you sing it. So you make rap songs of the words they sing. So just any fun thing where they're in control. I watched a handful of videos on your children online on YouTube, and I said, boy, these are some characters. They're gonna love making people do things, and there's a really high reward. And remember, first vocabulary words are really designed to make people do things, not to get things. And so I think that's going to work out really well. There's some PowerPoints I've created, but there's a link that you can go to that basically just has the icon sequence with a GIF attached to it that are funny. Now, don't ever forget to model, and then model some more. So when you get one of these communication devices in your home, make sure that you use it and your spouse uses it. And if you have other kids, have them using it. You don't want to treat it like it's expensive or you're worried about breaking it. So you don't want to tell the other kids don't play on it. We really learn best when we see other people doing it. So I just want you to remember to model, and then model some more, but never feel guilt when you're not doing it, because it doesn't have to be all the time. It's just when you can. But if you have neighborhood kids or cousins or classmates or something, you want to see them communicating on the device in front of the child. I'm going to do our first little break after this one, but always remember live models don't always work for everybody. For some reason, they don't know why, but some kids with disabilities especially only learn well when they see something in a video model. There's several reasons why. The first one might be that they have a hard time focusing on all this stuff happening in this room. But when you put it on a screen, it's reduced down to this size. It might be that they can rewind and play it and they're great visual learners. Who knows why? It might be because they're in the video. But for whatever reason, video modeling can be very effective when live modeling doesn't always work. So you always want to show them doing the good stuff, real short little videos of them doing fun, good things. A self models where you see yourself performing the behavior. A peer models where you see somebody you like. Always make it their best friend. If they're ever in love with another student, that's the perfect person to make the peer model. There's 2 times you have a big language explosion. The first few years of life and again at puberty. They get the trick of the puberty stages. They got to be working with the person they have a crush on. And then point of view models where you see your hand as if you're the individual, as if you're using the device. So if I was doing point of view, I would see my hand. Now I didn't put this in the PowerPoint, but if you download it in the next few weeks, it's free. I did create a video modeling app. And this is very self-serving, but it's free right now. So, and it's never too high, never that expensive of an app. But I didn't think about putting that in the PowerPoint, but it's called Word, W-O-R-D, and then T-O-O-B, WordTube. And I should have done a little bit more on that. But anyway, that's a free video modeling app. Right now it's free. When the public schools open up again, I'm going to put it back for a fee, a few dollars or something. But anyway, it's a great video modeling app. There's a lot can be benefited through video modeling. Now, I think that's a good spot to break probably right after video modeling, in case you feel good about that.
That sounds great. Join us for the second session of this webinar in just a minute.